it stuns me that we're talking about this fight as a prelim on this particular card. Why is it here? Why isn't this so much higher? What are we doing? Like, I'm just exasperated.
Welcome back to Against the Cage, your MMA home for all the previews, recaps, and exclusive interviews that your heart desires. So make sure to like and subscribe if you don't want to miss any of that stuff. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm here with my two esteemed co-hosts, Scott Fontana and Erich Richter. And guys, last week we were talking a little bit about Dana White's Contender Series, some upcoming rising prospects. So I think we would continue that conversation today and maybe go through some of the divisions and see who we like as prospects. As I understand, you guys have done a little bit of research and come up with some names that you guys would like to see. So let's run through some of these divisions, and let's start it off with the heavy hitters, the heavyweights. And Scott, I will start with you. Who are some heavyweight prospects that you think people should keep their eyes on and that you'll be keeping your eye on as well?
So heavyweight's tricky because there's a bit of talent at the top, and then there's a bunch of less talented fighters after that. But I'm gonna tell you that there is kind of a feeder program, I guess, for a lot of the up and coming heavyweight talent, heavier weight talent, particularly out of that Middle East region, ACA. That's where you kind of seeing, guys like, basically every heavyweight or light heavyweight is coming out of that region and often touches that promotion. But I'll give you a name. Zumso Zarayev is the name that I have come up with. He is 31 years old, 8-0, all with ACA. 6'1", a thick 250 pounds. Like he's kind of just like a burly dude. Like he doesn't look like by any means like fat or anything like that. Not an action figure, but he looks burly, man. I'm telling you. Just beat Carlos Felipe. If you guys remember him from the UFC, he had a little bit of a stint and particularly well, but yeah. It's a good win. I think it's something that certainly would seem to indicate that he would probably be on like the UFC's radar in the coming months and years. I don't know how much longer really it would take, but he's climbed as high as the 60th in Fight Matrix's rankings, which is what I kind of use to help guide me. And keep an eye out for him. Zumso Zarayev.
That's a good name too. A fun one to say. Erich, how about you?
Easy.
Yeah, so I just want to say, when it comes to doing these, you have to kind of latch on to things that you might not normally do. So like maybe they're really skilled in one area, or they have one win over somebody who fought in the UFC and failed in the UFC. Face value like Carlos Felipe. Like who cares? He beat Carlos Felipe. It's like actually Carlos Felipe was able to get to the dance, so that actually does mean something. I'm going to talk
not
about
a terrible fighter either.
No, definitely not. But like when you're looking at something like this, you're trying to build up and find somebody that can actually kind of get there. One person to look out for me at heavyweight, Josh Hockett. He had originally he was with LFA for a little while, signed a deal with PFL, had a bunch of people fall out of fights, was on LFA again, recently fought on Dana White's Contender Series last month. He looked really good in that fight. He was the one that did the American flag, like Colby Covington kind of impersonation, where he was like, saying just a bunch of crazy stuff. He actually is pretty talented. He's 6-0. And for the division, he's, pretty talented. He calls himself the Incredible Hulk. So that's an option as well. He was on Dana White's Contender Series, good submissions, can actually grapple, which I kind of look for at the heavier division since it doesn't really exist. So yeah, there's a name. Josh Hockett. He could be pretty good, although he might be a little annoying with his personality.
All right. Scott, you could take it.
I'm going to give you just to tell you real quick too, Zumso Zarayev, because I forgot to mention this as well. My guy, all ZZ top, right? He's ZZ heading to the top. He's also a sub-focused guy coming out of Chechnya too. So not I wouldn't say he's like Hamzat. They fight a little differently, but there's at least some similar pedigree. And yes, we're talking about a grappler mainly. I
forgot to mention Josh Hockett fighting over at Jackson Wink MMA, formerly of John Jones's camp. So there's some pedigree there too.
All right. Well, I was going to say, Scott, listen, you could take a deep breath now. We've gotten past the heavyweights, okay? So that's out of the way. Moving to light heavyweight, I'll throw it back to you, Scott. Who's a light heavyweight that you keeping your eye on?
I think Eric will like this one, or maybe he won't. Maybe I'm stealing his thunder here. I've got Abdul Rahman Yakayev, who just got that win on Contender Series a couple weeks ago. Or when was it? How recently was that, Eric?
Oh boy, I don't remember. I gotta look.
I think it was a
Was it?
couple. I want to say it was a couple weeks.
Yeah,
But he
yeah,
but
I believe
he
it was
won it.
this
He
season.
won in 30 seconds, just demolished his poor opponent.
Yes.
7-0, six finishes, five in the first round. Some strong performances as well at Aries FC in France. That's a nice promotion that they've built in France very quickly as well. He's got his UFC debut lined up against Rafael Sequeira in late November. So keep your eye on that. This is the type of matchup that he's the type of guy really that 205 needs. Young blood, also has not gotten past 60. I think that could change quickly.
All right, Eric, how about you?
I got two at light heavyweight, but they're a little bit like they're already currently in the UFC. I just believe in their talent. Vitor Petrino and Rodolfo Bellato. Those are two guys at light heavyweight. They actually fought each other at Dana White's Contender Series. A really, really fun fight. You should watch it if you haven't. That was their debuts. Vitor Petrino won that fight. Obviously, he got submitted by Anthony Smith. That was kind of like a little weird, like kind of like a vet lesson a little bit more than a fraud check, in my opinion. Draw to Jimmy Crute, which I'm actually not very like. I'm not down on that. I think Jimmy Crute's a really solid fighter too. So
Kurt's a tough fighter.
yeah, yeah. So that's fine. A draw against Jimmy Crute. So yeah, still believe he's legit. I think that there's grappling upside there, which again is something I look for at the heavier divisions. And his striking is really good. I just don't want him to fall in love with that. I want him to go more to the grappling. So I think that with a couple tweaks here and there, I think Vitor Petrino is probably my number one. Bellato would be my number two. I think they're both super talented. They have like they're physically in shape and not undersized for the division. A lot of times we see light heavyweight and heavyweight. It's people that are kind of just out of shape and like maybe like 6'2". Vitor Petrino's like 6'3" and like shredded. So that helps as well.
Yeah, those guys don't look. They look scary. I'll say
Yes.
that much.
They have the physique for sure. First
Absolutely.
team all body.
Yes, yeah, there we go. Alrighty, moving along to middleweight. Scott, who do you got in middleweight? 185.
I've got another one for your all body team, I guess, if that's your thing, Eric. This guy looks like a GI Joe, Kareem Ngizek. I believe I pronounced his name correctly. He is the Octagon 185-pound champion. He's from Turkey, trains in Germany. You should see this guy. He looks like a GI Joe toy. It's ridiculous. But he's not real. I'm bending the rules a little bit on prospect. He's 34. He has a 10-year, 16 fight win streak going. So he is not a prospect, but he has not cracked really he just cracked actually that top 50 on Fight Matrix. All my rankings are come from Fight Matrix when I'm referring to them. But the fact that he still hasn't quite gotten to that level of recognition and maybe face that type of opponent, I'm still gonna put him here because I want to see what he could do. I'd love to see what he could do in the UFC middleweight division. That's a guy that they need to sign.
Yeah, this guy looks like he's out of a movie. I was just looking.
You looked him up?
I did. I did.
Yeah.
I'll throw that on the screen for sure.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
You should.
Eric, how about you? Are we sticking with
Mansour Abdul
all body?
Malik also Mansour Abdul Malik also in the UFC, 27 years old, training at MMA Masters, which has Ilia Topuria, super well rounded, been a massive favorite in all of his fights, and he's just again first team all body. Like this guy is absolutely shredded. He's really good striking and wrestling. So he's super like I like his well-roundedness. I like his the promotion's been pushing him pretty consistently from what I've seen. So yeah, I expect him to have a title shot within the next 2 years. So I'm going to call him a prospect. He's still 27, but hasn't fought very much, and I'm all over him in futures and stuff like that. Like for next year, maybe like to end the year as a champion bet, which usually gets released around December, November. Could totally see it if he racks up a couple wins here.
All right, all right. And guys, we're moving into some of the divisions that have been historically very deep. So some tough challenges for these prospects to break into these divisions, in my opinion, specifically.
Yeah,
So let's
for
move
sure.
along to welterweight. Scott, who do you have?
I went with the current KSW champion at 170 pounds. That's Adrian Bartoshinsky. He's 30 years old. He's trained at American Top Team, I should say. They have strong ties to Polish talent, as I think we could all think of some pretty good Polish fighters that have come out of there, right?
Sure.
17-1. His only loss is up in weight at middleweight to Mamed Halidov. I'm not sure if you got, do either of you know that name, Mamed
Don't know.
Halidov?
I don't.
Okay, this is a name who has floated around the upper levels of middleweight in Europe for about 15 years. He is a legit, like he would have come over to the UFC and been very quality, but he was very comfortable and made a good living at KSW. So he just kind of stayed there. That's really what happened with him. But so no shame in that loss, basically. Other than that, this guy is unbeaten. Um, I would really love to see what he could do if he starts to make his way over to the UFC as well. Maybe they could just get some more talent over. KSW is fun to watch, so it's not like I want him to go away. I just want to see him get tested.
You know, it could be fun is doing a homework assignment. It doesn't. I feel like our homeworks don't always have to be super long ago, right? So we could do a homework assignment where it's a KSW fight more recently, if it warrants it. But Eric, enough of the tangent.
Yes.
Who's your fighter for welterweight?
John Paul Abbassiani, talked about him a little bit last week. Super talented striker, just debuted on Dana White's Contender Series over at American Top Team. He's got the lineage. His family is his father was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, legendary one at that. He's got the look, he's got the style, he's got the promotion, like the production quality and like the like interview that they did with him during the show was really interesting, and I thought they kind of nailed it. I think that he definitely has the makings of what could be a real star in the UFC, and he's got a good personality, good guy, respectful, and like expects more of himself. Like even of his post-fight interview, like he got this crazy knockout. He like everyone knew he was getting a contract to the UFC, and he was like, yeah, like I should do this stuff. Like this is expected of me. Like my father is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I come from this family. I need to be a champion. Not like I'm happy to be here. He's like this is what I was expected of me since I was in middle school, type of thing. So big on him for sure.
Alrighty, sounds like he's like oozing with confidence. I like that. All
No
right.
doubt.
Okay, moving over to lightweight. This is the big one, in my opinion. Scott, who do you got for lightweight?
So before I go into lightweight, probably should just clarify for everybody what my methodology was as far as why I picked the fighters I picked in general. I was looking for talent, generally speaking, in the men's weight classes, we'll say, who were not quite at the top 50. Again, Fight Matrix is where I went with, not quite at the top 50 yet, but but also we're kind of like heading in the right direction, right? I went a little lower with the women. We'll get to that later. But this is the first time I've actually got a UFC rostered fighter for you because the UFC, once you get down to these weight classes, they have a lot of talent on the roster. Deep, deep, deep. I went with Nazim Sadikov. Familiar
Mm,
name for you
Yes.
guys. I obviously we've heard about that name before. He, as you guys all know, ties to Ray Longo and crew, Syndicate MMA with John Wood and all those guys. He has a very strong team around him. Very proud of his Azerbaijani heritage, upbringing in Brooklyn. We talking about our New York guys here. He has not dropped a fight since his pro debut 7 years ago. Obviously, we saw him get on the map with Nicholas Mota and Ismail Bonfim winning those fights. They put him, I think, on the wider radar this year. He's only 31, guys, and he hasn't quite gotten into that top 50 yet. So, yeah, I mean, I want to see what this momentum is going to carry him. I want to see how far he'll go.
That's a good shout. Eric, what about you?
This one's a little bit further down. Some of them I went further down. Some of them I was in the UFC. Really just depended. This is one that I've seen promoted on social media, and that's how I found him. Joe McColgan over at SBG Ireland, Conor McGregor's old camp. John Kavanagh is a pupil. He's a Cage Warriors champ right now over at 155. Now, I'm not quite sure if he's going to stick at 155. He's 6 feet tall, and he is at lightweight, so that might be a little bit tough for him to make going forward. But if you just go through like his record, lots of wins by finishes, submissions, and knockouts. His losses, his two most recent losses against Jai Herbert and Mason Jones. And those, I mean, Mason Jones just had a pretty impressive victory last weekend, and I've actually always been pretty bullish on Mason Jones in general. So, not
Same
the worst
here,
thing in the
man.
world. Yeah, yeah. Not super discouraged by that. He also has a win over former Bellator fighter Peter Queally. So that there is a floor there. There is a ceiling, but there is a floor as well. And maybe he can get better. He's definitely a weight bully for lightweight if he can stick around there, which is a good start if you're looking at the prospects of somebody to continue moving on up the rankings.
Dang, yeah, 6 foot tall for lightweight is that.
Crazy.
I imagine it's got like a similar build to like a Jalen Turner, something like that, right?
Definitely not easy. That's for
Alrighty,
sure.
moving on to 145. Scott, who's your guy or gal?
I went. Uh,
Oh wait, we're
well, we're
sticking
talking
with
about the
yeah,
men's
yeah.
weight
We are
classes here, sir.
145. Yeah, excuse me.
All right. Well, anyway, I went very deep here. This is a real deep cut at featherweight.
Okay, I did not go deep.
Shermurat Halilov, or Kalilov, I believe is what it is. Kalilov. I have to admit, I don't even know a distinct ton about this guy. I watched a little bit on him, and I kind of liked what I saw from him. 27 years old, 10-0 from Kyrgyzstan. He fights for a promotion in Kazakhstan called Octagon League, and you know, he's basically a kind of a deeper cut. That's what I would really say here. He has a fight coming up against a veteran named Valery Grisutin, and I'm curious to see because Grisutin is in that top 100. This guy who I'm talking about, he is outside the top 200 right now. But if he wins that fight, he starts to vault into that. Okay, let's start paying attention to this guy a little bit.
Alrighty, I like it. Eric, how about you?
I kind of feel like I should omit my featherweight one because it's so different than all the other ones I put out there. This guy's already ranked, so I put Lerone Murphy here, just because I feel like he was so disrespected prior to the Aaron Pico fight, and I bet Lerone
Misunderstood the
Murphy
assignment.
to win by knockout. Yeah, let's just
Yeah,
omit
man, this is a little too far.
too far. Yeah, all right, Lerone Murphy. I just feel like he's too disrespected and he's undefeated, and he should fight for the title next. But
I mean, you just
let's
called him a
omit that.
prospect, man.
He's not a prospect. He shouldn't be a prospect. I just think he should fight for the title, and I think he'll be the champion by the end of the year next year. So omit my featherweight one. It's not good enough.
Okay, and I'm gonna ask you to omit that in a future question, which I'll get to. But Scott, what do you got for 135?
Going down to 135, I've got another regional promotional champion here. It's Vinicius Pires from LFA. Just won the belt earlier this year in March. Rear naked choke in the third round. 28 years old from Brazil, 10-1. That lone loss was in his second fight, so he's got a lot of momentum now. He's actually been a better finisher in his recent fights than earlier. Sometimes you see they hit a wall and it gets harder to finish. This guy is finding it to be easier. I would love to see him get signed. He's already basically around the top 50. I would like to see the UFC sign him outright and put him against one of those contender series guys. And let's see. Or heck, maybe even PFL ought to get him, give him a crack at their 2026 bantamweight tournament after last year's was a little lackluster. I think he'd be some good blood.
Yeah, I mean, some of those divisions in PFL definitely need some juicing as far as the tournament roster goes, so that'd be good. Eric, how
Maybe
about
not juicing. We're going to try
you?
to
No,
keep it
yeah,
clean
I keep
sport.
using that word, and it's not what I mean. You know. All right, Eric, how about you?
Bantamweight, another UFC fighter, and I'm gonna go Peyton Talbot. I love Peyton Talbot. Super talented striker. I think his takedown defense is improving dramatically. And again, KO's your king. He does a lot of creative stuff with his striking, and I think that Peyton Talbot's again another guy who you can get behind and promote. Peyton Talbot could. I had a future fight in my head for Peyton Talbot. Maybe not after this fight. Maybe he needs like one more fight, but I could totally see him and Sean O'Malley face off, and I feel like that would be a really fun fight. Pending what happens, like next year or something like that. Maybe 2 fights away or something like that. But Peyton Talbot, think he's super interesting at bantamweight, and I'd love for them to put kind of their promotional eggs in that basket.
I like it. You know, if it was coming off of his first fight in the or first loss rather in the UFC, I would have maybe been not so bullish on him, but he looked like he kind of redeemed himself in that last
Yes,
one. Like
he
you
looked
said,
in a totally different place.
yes, absolutely. Alrighty, moving on to flyweight. Scott, what do you got?
I got a name that I think you're going to be hearing a lot of in the coming years. Bilal Hassan, who is the Cage Fury champion. You already know this name, Eric. Yeah.
Yep,
Washington
he was
State
going to be
native,
mine.
only. Okay, all right. Only 24 though. He's 7-0. There's so much hype. I mean, like Eric, brutal finisher. He has a spinning wheel kick knockout in his fourth fight. He won by body shot to defend his title for the first time in February. He has not cracked the top 100 yet at flyweight, but you watch, he's going to get to the UFC and it's going to be a thing.
Alrighty, and Eric, who is your
Correct
flyweight?
me if I'm wrong, but I believe he just fought in August. I think that's how I found him. But yeah, he's super impressive. For me, I haven't given up Muhammad Mokaev. I love him. I liked him when he was coming out of England, 5 years ago. I wanted him, to rise to the point where he's champion. Fortunately, it doesn't sound particularly likely that that ends up happening. But for me, I think that Muhammad Mokaev could easily be a champion in this division. All he needs is a shot. I don't know if it'll happen though.
Not for nothing, Eric. I just want to say, number one, he can be a champion somewhere. So even if the UFC doesn't sign him, I think we can look at someone like that, as talented as he is, as long as he isn't losing along the way. If he becomes a champion somewhere, he legitimizes that belt because of his presence.
That is true.
And I also would say never about him. I don't know. He's a young guy, like
Yes.
and I think he could certainly. There's a lot of time for him to mend fences and get back in the UFC if that's what he desires.
Like Brian Battle signed with the PFL and he got kicked out of the UFC. Why hasn't Mokaev? I don't understand.
Signed with the PFL, you mean?
Yeah.
They don't really do
That's a good
flyweight.
question. Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty good one.
Well, then
see
that
what-
would make
Yes,
sense.
they stop at bantamweight. I'm sure they would give him one-off fights, but like, is that really going to help him? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he is a pretty world-class flyweight. I don't know how we would look at that.
He could move up to bantamweight if that was what he wanted, but I mean, if he doesn't want to do that, then yeah, PFL's
course.
just not the place for him.
Yeah,
That's fair.
that makes sense. Alrighty. Well, getting to the other bantamweight, women's bantamweight, Scott, who do you have over there?
So again, I'm just gonna clarify for you guys when we get over to these women's weight classes here. The women's weight classes are a lot shallower in terms of the talent pool. I'm not saying they're worse fighters. What I am saying is there are fewer women who do this than men. So rather than cut it off around the top 50 like I was doing, I kind of let it go closer to the top 25.
Okay.
But we're still looking at people who are on the up and up and who have not kind of gone up and down. That was my really preference here. So
Sure.
to answer you, my friend Jake here, I went with Regina Tarin. She is a 20-year-old, the youngest fighter on my list, 20-year-old out of Mexico. She's already number 25 at 135 pounds at, again, Fight Matrix. 6-0. Split fights between Budo Sento Championship, which you can watch, I believe, on Fight Pass in her home country, and also Combate Global, which is, as maybe you guys know, the colorful Hispanic American focused promotion. She's got 5 finishes, 3 straight with punches in there, including a title victory at Budo Sento. She is savage, dude, and she's got some funness in her personality. There's like kind of this young exuberance of being 20 years old that really comes across. She'll be in the UFC, but I hope she takes a little bit of time and just gets a little bit more experience before she gets there.
I'll have to be on the lookout. What did you say her name was again?
Her name is Regina Tarin. It's Regina Tarin.
Okay, gotcha. Regina.
If you want to Google it, it's Regina Tarin, but it's Regina Tarin.
That's the Okay, gotcha. All right, Eric, who do you got?
So this one I'm not sure will ever actually end up being in the UFC, but undefeated at bantamweight, Lucia Sabova. She's the champion over at Octagon. Last fall in August, she's 10 wins, 8 by finish, 10-0. Now, when I was looking through her camp, I had never heard of it, and the name escapes me right now, but there's no one in the UFC in her camp, and it seems like Octagon has a pretty good hold or a retention of their fighters. They don't, like, a lot of them don't really pick up and leave, so I'm not sure if she'll actually get to the UFC, but she looks like Valentina Shevchenko, like in terms of like her facial features. Her nickname's a silent killer. She's pretty dominant over there. And Fight Matrix had her at 24, so which is pretty high. That's borderline, like, should be ranked in the UFC basically. But yeah, so that's my pick for bantamweight. And also keep in mind in Fight Matrix's rankings, like, Dakota Ditchva's on there. And her last fight, Torres is also in the top 15. So, like, she would be really up there for the UFC if she was able to go in there. Doesn't sound likely that that'll happen though.
All right.
One comment on Octagon though, just as a reminder. I mean, obviously, sometimes these promotions, especially in Europe, they do try to hold on to their talent. KSW is notorious for making it welcoming for talent to want to stay. That's really what it is. That's what they've done a pretty decent job of. But with Octagon, Losine Keita is a former Octagon champion who came over to the UFC. We'll talk a little bit about him later, but just as a point of fact, there are certainly pathways out of Octagon if that is what she wants.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for laying that out for us, Scott. And let's move on to the women's flyweights. We were just talking about Valentina Shevchenko. This is her division. Scott, who do you got at flyweight for women?
I have Polina Vishnevska, the 2024 PFL Europe champion at flyweight. So she's on the radar. If you've been watching the majors, if you happen to be also watching, well, you couldn't before, but now you can. You can watch PFL Europe through their app now in America. If you're
Where's
outside of
that?
America, hello, thanks for watching. But maybe you already are familiar with her. She is 6-0 already. I believe she's 26 years old. She's already kind of just barely around that top 25. So again, I made a little bit of an exception here, but three of her last four are by finish. They were commenting on the last fight. I did happen to watch that on YouTube. They were commenting on her last fight, Sean O'Connell and crew, just about how much she seems like she just likes to punch somebody, or like looks like she always wants to punch somebody. So if that's your kind of thing, there she is. I think she'd be a really strong entrant into their flyweight, tournament next year, the main one.
All right, all right. And Eric, who do you
I like
have?
that. I like that. So when I was like looking at this, I was like, who could be realistically get a title shot by the end of next year? Which is part of my thought process when making the women's stuff. Like who, if you were to jump in, would you jump in and fight once, twice to get a title shot? Stuff like that. So for my women's ones, the next two are going to be UFC talent that is currently on the roster. Kong Wang, we saw her fight
Mhm.
at Newark a few months ago. She looked really good in that
Wong
win.
Kong, she goes by.
Wong
But Wong
Kong.
Kong, sorry about that. It's wrong on like a bunch of different websites.
Oh,
It's
wait,
hard
actually, I
to.
think it's Wong Dong. Man, I'm terrible with Chinese pronunciations. I apologize to the Chinese
It's all good.
viewers.
It's all
We
good.
roll with the punches.
Yeah, Kong Wang. I don't know. I copy and pasted it from Fight Matrix, but like the name. So I don't know. So it seems like there's a little miscommunication on what her exact name is. But winnable division. I think that her striking is good enough to get by. And like we said, flyweight, not a whole lot there. So for me, it was like maybe one or two wins, and she's right there. So that was mine.
She looked pretty good when we watched her in Jersey. Yeah, that
Yes,
was a decent fight for her.
that
Yeah,
was like her best performance, which is partly why it's like maybe she's on the way up.
And that was coming
sure.
off of a loss, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, right? So yeah, she bounced back. Alrighty, guys, this is the last one. We've made it to the end. Women's strawweight. Scott, who's your pick?
Here's a name I think you guys are already familiar with, Fatima Klein. I probably cheating here a little bit, and I will not apologize. She has already kind of gotten to that top 25. She's 25 years old. She is a prospect, though. I think she's a really hot prospect in terms of the rise. They're 8-1, former two weight class champion for CFFC before she arrived in the UFC. Don't worry about that loss that she had in her debut, because let's remember that it was on short notice, up in weight, against Jasmine Jazdavicius, who is already like, we're talking about title picture, and she went the distance with her. So that I think is honestly, it's almost to her credit that she performed as well as she did in that fight. She goes back down, puts the elbows on Victoria Dudakova with the TKO there in January, and then over in July she gets the that head kick KO of Melissa Martinez. So we're talking about some real momentum here, and just reported by MMA Junkie this week, she is drawing Angela Hill at Madison Square Garden. Trains with Erin Blanchfield in Jersey. She's from just outside Poughkeepsie, so there's a lot of New York ties here. She'll have a bunch of fans at the Garden, and you watch. I think she's going places.
All right, well, I can't wait to watch that in person. Eric, for our final fighter or prospect on this list, who do you got?
This one's not good enough either. This one's on the level of Lerone Murphy bad. Jillian Robertson, not a prospect. Officially not a prospect. She's like 36. I just think that she should fight for the title again. This is just somebody who's ranked top 10. I just think that she will be the champion at the end of the year. So I guess a few of these, I kind of lost the goal where it was like find a prospect, which is with a goal. But for me, I was like find somebody that will be the champion next year that you might not think of. So I lost the goal on two of these. My bad, guys. But Jillian Robertson, champion next year. She's won four
It's a
straight.
bit like
Marina Rodriguez, Michelle Watterson. I think she's improving dramatically her striking. So not a prospect, and I will eat that.
This is like showing up at Chick-fil-A and being like, "Can I get a burger?"
Yeah,
A
but
little bit,
you
a
know
little
what?
bit.
This does transition into my next question, which is to round out this whole topic. Out of all of your guys' prospects, who do you think has the best chance out of your guys to be a UFC champion one day, or at least a contender? Scott, how about you?
I'll give you someone who I'm actually going to put championship level aspirations upon, and that is Bilal Hassan. I really can see him thriving in the future where we're talking about guys like Joshua Van, and that ilk is going to be the next level of flyweight who's kind of running around. Maybe Muhammad Mukayev is in there too. I kind of butchered that, but Muhammad Mukayev, maybe he's in there too, right? But I'd be very interested to see what he could do. He is quite a martial artist, and I would love to see what he can do up at that championship level one day. We'll give him a slow progress, but I can see that.
And Eric, I'm gonna say right now, you can't pick Lerone Murphy for yours.
Okay, well, so this is where I got a little lost. I was like, when I thought future champion, I was like, maybe within the next like year or two. So I was like, Leroy Murphy, potential champion, Julian Robertson, potential champion, Vitor Petrino, potential champion. Vitor Petrino used to be ranked. I don't believe he is anymore. So like, I have a bunch of options basically. Like John Paul Labassiani is not going to be champion for like probably 2 or 3 years at best. So,
You can
but
look
could
down the
still,
road. That's all good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, like if we're looking at it like with a little bit more of a wider lens, then yes, John Paul Bassiani
Alrighty.
definitely has future champion written all over him. If he's able to don't get hit. He likes firefights and he's good at them, but that only goes so long. It's like kind of like playing blackjack a little bit. So, yeah, John Paul Bassiani, and then obviously Lucia Sabova, if she were to come over and make the plunge into the UFC, that would be big time for the division, no doubt.
All right, all right. Well, guys, I thought that this was pretty comprehensive. I mean, we literally went through every single division. But for you at
Yes.
home, let us know who you have your eye on, that maybe we should be keeping ours on too. So yeah, and let us know what you thought about Scott and Eric's list. Who did you like better? That could be a little fun thing to see go on in the comments. Alrighty,
All
I
right.
feel like that's not fair because I actually went with the assignment and Eric didn't.
Eric
So
cheated a little bit.
well, yeah,
Instructions are
Eric's cheating.
unclear.
Yeah, there we go. Alrighty. Well, guys, no way to transition, but this past weekend, UFC Paris finished up, and this is a show where we do recaps and previews, so we gotta talk about what happened this past weekend. Nassourdine Imavov getting by with a win against Caio Borralho in a sort of maybe title shot situation. So the question is that we kind of had last week, and that I don't know if we've gotten any clarity on. That's what we should talk about right now. Scott, do you think that the performance that Imavov had was enough to lock up a title shot, or are we still in a little bit of a limbo situation?
I don't think it was quite that. No, he obviously won without question, right? We're not sitting there saying, oh, maybe he could have lost this fight. Like, no, he won the fight. It's very obvious. But he's coming off of a performance where he finished off Israel Adesanya, and then he does this. This is not the thing that tops that. It's the thing that kind of brings it back down to what I think a lot of people thought of when they would think of Nassourdine Imavov. Talented fighter, good fighter, but maybe not always the one who's going to thrill you. So that was an unfortunate thing for him. Having said that, me personally, I'm still giving him the title shot because I think his resume is much more impressive than that of, again, either Reiner de Ritter or Anthony Fafio Hernandez, even if when one of them beats the other, right? I'd still go the other way, but yeah, he didn't help himself.
Yeah, Eric, how about you?
Yeah, so the fight kind of went exactly like I expected it to be honest. Like Imavov led the dance, but Borralho definitely had moments in there. And like I had said last week, Imavov has moments of excellence, but then there are also some like confusing decisions. He let Borralho kind of back him up against the cage a lot. The leg kicks were really good. Borralho should have done more of those. Imavov he pushed the pace in the striking, but never really took any serious risks, especially after the second round. So, was it enough to get a lock up title shot? I'd say no. And honestly, depending on how RDR versus Fluffy goes, I think that fight is arguably more deserving of a title shot. The Imavov win over Adesanya is solid, but I think that if Adesanya were to fight again, I think that we could have a similar result. I don't want to say that Adesanya's washed, but think about how many kickboxing fights he's had, and then think about how many UFC fights he's had. He's taken a ton of damage over his life. So for me, I honestly I don't expect him to get a title shot at this point now.
Fair enough. I am a little bit
Bold.
surprised that it I'm a little bit surprised that it didn't end in a finish. I thought that, and like watching the fight, you could kind of tell that that's the way that it was going to be going. It was a pretty tactical match
Yes.
between these two guys. Like Scott said, it was definitely a clear win, but like it was also a pretty competitive fight. But I Kyle just never really got going, which was sort of
No,
surprising to me. I thought that there would be more of a clash, and there wasn't. Not
there
to say that
wasn't.
it was a boring fight. The third, fourth, and fifth round were actually very entertaining, in my opinion. One and two, I
Especially
can
the third.
understand. Yeah.
Especially the third. It was definitely more entertaining in the third. For me, I agree with you. I thought that Borjalho kind of never got going. I had projected this fight to be a war. And part of the reason was I thought that Borjalho would get. I knew that Imavov would, and I always thought that that betting line was bad. We'll talk more about that in 3 minutes. I always said that that betting line was bad and that Imavov should have been favored. However, Borjalho never got going, and then the whole like this fight will be a war thing went out the window because there was less aggression from Borjalho than I was expecting or looking for. He should have made that into a dogfight, and I think he actually would have won.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Anything else on?
Couldn't have hurt. Couldn't
Yeah,
have hurt
that's
unless he got
true.
knocked out. But he certainly didn't win.
Could have hurt, but
Yeah,
They all can hurt. I'll give it that.
fair enough.
this is
Fair
the
enough.
fight business, baby.
It is the fight business.
Alrighty, well, looking towards what would have been on this card, but was scrapped, sadly. Patricio Pitbull versus Lucine Keita, because Lucine Keita missed weight. I'm drawing a blank on by how much, but he did miss weight
I want to
enough.
say it was 4 pounds. Does
Four
that sound right,
pounds.
guys?
That I don't remember it being like
It was either
terribly
3 or 4.
astronomically large, but it was large enough to where like you could warrant, you
It was
know.
either 3 or 4. He had said at one point that he
It
was
might have been.
one.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
might have been 49, and like obviously you can get to 46 for this fight.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Well, it was enough to where Patricio Pitbull did not want to take the fight any longer, and the fight was scrapped. And whenever something like this happens, there's a lot of debate on whether or not someone should have taken the fight. Obviously, you get half the other person's purse and whatnot, and no one wants to see a fight scrapped. But I'll throw it to Eric. What do you think Pitbull was in the right after what he did, and not taking the fight?
Yeah, I mean, I have no beef with it at all. I mean, Pitbull's undersized for 145. Let's just call it what it is. He's 5'6". He is tiny for that division in terms of height. I mean, he's thick, right? That's why they call him Pitbull. But he is tiny for that division. So that extra 4 pounds, and I believe that it was either 3 or 4 pounds. That's a lot of weight. So the additional 20% purse. I mean, the video was strange, right? That Pitbull put out, or Patricky Pitbull, his brother put out. That was a strange video because
Of Losine
you know,
talking to them in the locker room.
yeah, like the
Yeah.
two of them like kind of
Pleading
trying
to
to
take that fight. Yeah.
him pleading for him to take that fight. He's like, none of anything that you're saying to me is my problem. It's like all of this is a you problem. And I kind of like that because he's right. And for
I
you to
love it.
be in the UFC the first time and miss weight is bad. Like that's a bad look. Pitbull looking at him and said, "Move up to lightweight," because he's undersized for the division. So I have no beef with him not taking the fight. Now, my question, and I'm sure Scott, you probably popped this into your head too. We've seen this in the past. Even Wonderboy Thompson rejected a fight after a fighter missed weight, and he didn't get his show money or something like that. I would be very interested to know if I was interviewing Patricio Pitbull, if that ended up happening for him, because it seems like they have, again, one main critiques of the UFC is selective rules. Selective, the way that they do things is sometimes selective. Like this happened to Wonderboy Thompson. I'm interested. Did Patricio get his show money?
And Wonderboy's also done a lot more for the UFC than Patricio has,
Exactly.
So that's
There should be more seniority for Wonderboy Thompson in theory anyway. But Scott, I'll throw it to you.
Look, as far as did Pitbull do the right thing, 1,000%, 10,000%, he did the right thing. Keita put himself in that position. So when he's saying it's not my problem, that is exactly true. It's not on him. It
mhm.
is not on him when you miss weight. He doesn't have to bail you out and take that fight and potentially lose to the guy who actually has a lot more weight on him than he's supposed to. He didn't hit the contracted weight. Don't take the fight. More fighters ought to follow this example. And as far as, whether he gets paid the show money or anything like that, I would hope he gets paid at least the show money because he did make weight. But if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't love it. But I hope that they can get him, even regardless, get him a fight on that Rio card. He deserves it. That's what he wants.
Yeah, and just to round out this one, I mean, we were talking last week about like how insane this matchup was anyways. Like a debutant
Yeah.
being his opponent on not that long of a turnaround. Like he fought in July, so I
He
mean,
took the fight on 4 weeks' notice and he
yeah,
flew into hostile territory and was going to fight this
Crazy.
guy who didn't even want to make weight. Like, are you kidding me? Get out of here with that noise. F it.
yeah, and I agree in terms of the way that he handled it was pretty good. So,
Yeah.
yes,
No, the video definitely
Cold blooded and appropriate.
yeah,
Yes. And
absolutely.
he was just like, I don't care. Everything that you're saying, I don't care.
Yeah. Everything you're saying is your problem. Which part of this is my problem?
Exactly.
But listen, moving on to our co-main event, Mr. Benoit Saint-Denis coming away with a really dominant win over Mauricio Hufi. It looks like it looked kind of like Hufi just had nothing for him. Like there was
Yep. No
Pretty-
grappling.
He really wasn't there.
There was no
as
grappling.
as Islam's zero grappling. But I mean, listen, it's a pretty solid win over a guy who I mean had as of now probably the front runner for KO of the year. Big camp,
Yep.
the Fighting Nerds. So
the
it's a
mix,
solid
yeah.
win. Scott, I'm gonna throw this one to you. What do you think would be good for Benoit Saint-Denis going forward? Who should be his next opponent coming off this win?
I got a name for it I think you'll like. Benil Dariush.
Okay. All right.
I
mean,
think there's a lot to that one. You know, Benoit Saint-Denis, he lost to Renato Moicano. Dariush beats Moicano in June. So it kind of has that triangle thing that could happen from that. If for some reason we have Dariush win this one, he gets the rub off of beating Saint-Denis, who's got some hype. That can start pushing him back into that potential title range. If it's Benoit Saint-Denis who wins that fight, then we're talking, okay, maybe we don't worry so much about that Moicano loss. He's got the triangle thing here. The MMA math cancels out. So you
It
can
always
start
does.
saying, okay, let's see where else he goes. Exactly. MMA math is silly, but like obviously it's something we kind of look at as like, okay, if we have nothing, we'll look at
Yeah.
that. But this can cancel it out a little bit, and then we don't worry so much about that anymore. We just look at what he's doing. And I
yeah.
like this fight. I think it's a good fight.
Eric, do you like that one, or do you have something different in mind?
I like that one. I thought we were gonna have the same person here. Michael Chandler. Let's get Michael Chandler versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Let's do a little just chaos fight, and let's just start throwing right hooks and left hooks at each other. Maybe throw a takedown in. We'll be really tired after the second round, or maybe it'll be.
Why do you
over
want
in
Michael
first.
Chandler to get hurt?
Michael Chandler wants himself.
You
to
know
get
what?
hurt with
I
the
remember
weight that
this
he-
I
exact.
know, and someone needs to help him.
I remember
Someone
this
needs to help
exact
him.
conversation happening, but the other way around. Scott gave a name, and I can't remember who it was. It was, it was the winner of the Spanish fighter.
Someone Ilya Taporia. It was Ilya Taporia.
I can't
Ilya
remember who
Topuria.
it was, but Eric was like,
Alessandro Topuria.
no, not him.
Or Alexandre.
Alvarez, I think.
Topuria.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Joel
It was,
Alvarez.
Yes.
Joel Alvarez versus Benoit Saint-Denis.
I believe so, yeah. And Eric on the other end was like, Scott, are you trying to get Michael Chandler killed?
Yes. Now the
Anyways.
only thing about that is that Joel Alvarez is
trying to
now
kill
not fighting at lightweight. He's moving up to 170.
Oh,
So
okay.
that fight gets all those fun matchups get thrown out the window. But no, I would love Joel Alvarez to get in there. I love Joel Alvarez.
But Michael
but
Chandler's a good
unfor-
shout. I like that.
Michael Chandler, why not? Why not Michael
I'm
Chandler?
saying, look, it would be fun. I get it.
It's a winnable fight
I,
for both.
I like the idea of giving Benoit Saint-Denis a fight against someone who's coming off a win, though, instead of like a free fall.
Fair enough.
I was
Alrighty.
thinking Benoit Saint-Denis gets maybe a rub from Chandler's fame, but yeah.
Who knows?
That makes sense too.
I like all these shouts, but yes, protect Michael Chandler at all costs.
No, throw him Conor McGregor.
Fair enough. That's what. It's a different topic for a different day, I suppose. But let's just round out UFC Paris. We had a few members of the Team Aspinall camp come away with wins. We had Modestus Bukauskas and Ante Delia come away with wins on Saturday night, or Saturday during the day if you were stateside. But what do you think the ceiling is for these guys? I mean, both look pretty good. Obviously, they've got Tom Aspinall in that camp, so there's a lot of potential there with him leading the
Iron
helm.
sharpening iron.
Iron
over there.
sharpening iron, exactly. So, Scott, what do you think is the ceiling for these guys?
Dalia, dude, he looks spectacular against Marcin Tybura, and Tybura is that guy that if you beat him, you belong in the upper levels of heavyweight. That
Hmm.
is the litmus test. He is that type of gatekeeper, the higher level gatekeeper
Hmm.
that says you belong with the best. And I thought he looked like that. I think, honestly, I'm going to be a little bullish here. I think he has potential title picture upside. He's really not that far away. The problem is what happens if he gets close and Aspinall still has the belt. What are they going to do? Do they want to fight each other? They probably would ultimately. I think these guys probably are in it to make a little money and could do it, but who knows? We'll cross that bridge if we get there. But I do see that ceiling for him. Buskaskis, I'm less high on. I'm not going to say he's got, that kind of hype to him, but he's only 31. I think he's starting to iron out some of the problems he had earlier in his career. And could potentially step in as some of these other guys are aging and get out of there. I could see him maybe getting into like the top 10, like the bottom of the top 10, maybe mix it up with some of these big ones. I could see it.
All right, all right. Eric, what about you?
So yeah, two fighters here. I didn't realize before that Modestas Bukauskas moved to Tom Aspinall's camp. I didn't realize that until recently. So interesting move. Happy for him, and a bunch of wins in a row here. The grappling's definitely on point. The split decision against Ian Kudalaba, not ideal. So like, do I see him as like a potential top 10 guy? Probably not. But anti-Dalitsa, however, the win over Meister and Tabora was legit. I actually had Tybura by decision, incorrect on that one. And I think Dalitsa, if his grappling defense, which looked solid, Tybura had him up against the cage a lot, and he kind of just easily shrugged that off and looked at him as like, "What do you got now? Like now that you know I can't now that you know you can't take me down, now what?" And he started pushing
He
forward
was
and
very
got the
patient in
finish.
that position.
Hmm.
Yes, yeah, he was like, "I'll wait here for 2 minutes. I'll stop the takedown, and we'll see how." See, I mean, honestly, Tybura looked like, "Oh no, I can't take him down." Like he panicked. You could tell Tybura panicked immediately. It was like, "Oh no, I thought I had this." Tybura previously had a win over Delitsa, but it was a leg injury. It wasn't like a real TKO. I believe it was from a checked kick, if I'm not mistaken. So not a real win in theory, I guess. Yeah,
Check kicks and win, but I
interesting
get
stuff
what you
going.
mean. A little flukier.
Yeah, yeah, a little fluky, a little fluky. But yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting stuff going on at that division in that fight camp. So good on them and Ante Delisa. Definitely don't disagree that he could be in the title picture, especially in this division.
Yeah, I just wish he would have gotten into the UFC a little bit earlier. It's tough,
He was supposed to. He
Yeah,
was supposed to. He was supposed to fight Surreal
Heavyweights have a
Gone,
long
and
shelf
like,
life.
that is true.
yeah,
That is true.
I believe COVID took away his fight. He was supposed to fight Surreal Gone.
Dang. Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, he looked freaking good, and he's got a name like Tom Aspinall in his corner, so that definitely
That helps.
doesn't hurt when it comes to getting some, you know.
Iron sharpening iron.
Exactly. Alrighty. Well, that's not the only thing that we have to recap. I think we're going to move forward with the continuation of maybe taking a look back at Dana White's Contender Series. Because Eric, you said to us that there are some things that you would like to highlight from this week. What do we have?
Yes. Some super violent knockouts in the last couple weeks of Dana White Contender Series. So, if you like violence, definitely cool. For me, they're a little bit much, just to be totally clear. I'm not sure if it's a matchup thing, where like the really high guys are fighting maybe guys that are less talented. I'm not sure. It's definitely a very, very tough and tricky spot for Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby to make good matchups for. So, regardless, Stephen Aspeland was the main event. He was obese. He weighed 550 pounds at one point, so he's a lot of extra skin. But he's got a really good personality. He's funny, definitely not for everybody, but funny-ish. And knockout 16 seconds.
You're
Look, best case
describing a
scenario.
dating profile, sir.
Yeah. But there is something to that in terms of drawing power. I think he's funny. And
We
and you
started
got
the
again,
show by being like he's team all body like three
first
times
team
in
all
a
body.
row.
No, he is like Z team all body. He is not on the team.
That's me.
But I think that plays into that, especially at heavyweight. And he got, the third fastest knockout in UFC history or something like that. Really good personality, offered to suck Dana White's toes. Speaking of dating profiles, what else do I have in my notes? Yeah, he did say that, and we'll just move past that. Samuel Sanchez doesn't speak English, which even the commentary said, "I wish this guy spoke English," and that is something that I think that would help a lot of people, a lot of these fighters' ability to draw. Samuel Sanchez got crazy. One of the nastiest knockouts I can remember. Literally, the guy went unconscious standing up. So that's it. Dana White Contender Series. Samuel Sanchez and Tom Aspelund. People to know. Carol Foro, another one over at strawweight, is another prospect to look out for.
Can I throw in another one there too? Because I highlighted last week, I mentioned Larian Douglas was the
Oh
only
yeah.
one in the top 100 who was
Yes.
competing on this card, and he was going against an outside the top 500 Cam Teague. He got squashed, didn't he?
Cam Teague
Teague?
looked awful, and that was his second
Yeah.
second try at Dana White's Contender Series. He got re-invited, and that was bad.
Mm.
Yeah, this
He'll
seems
never
like
get
it
out
was
again.
just a squash match to get Douglas a fight that people have seen, and then they put him in the UFC. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what it was because Cam Teague had already been at Dana White's Contender Series, so I'm sure that he was hoping a set like the UFC was thinking that a second bite of the apple might get him there, but it was
Well,
so
he
much
can
worse
think
this
that, but I
time.
mean, let's from the UFC's perspective, I
No,
feel like there was probably a yeah.
potentially for sure. It was bad. It was really bad. His record's like 9-3. Like I don't know why he was in there anyway.
All right.
To do what he did.
A lot of stuff going on over at Contender Series, but there's also a lot of stuff going on this weekend in Mexico. UFC Noche, Diego Lopes taking on Jean Silva in that main event. And, I mean, this is a pretty important fight at featherweight, at least, two top 10, top 5 guys. Diego Lopes coming off of fighting for a title shot. Do you think that the winner of this fight can get a title shot? Is this we're looking at sort of a similar situation as we just came out of in Paris, but what do you guys think? Scott, I'll start with you. Do you think that either of these guys can come away with one?
I think this is a much lesser degree than what we just had at middleweight. I think Silva at least probably has more of a springboard if he does beat Lopez, especially convincingly, because he's got this meteoric rise sort of narrative around him, and he's obviously very violent. He's got a little bit of that personality with the with the nerds, right? Lopez, I don't know what he gets out of this as much. Like obviously it's a good win, but it's not necessarily the type of thing that's like you beat this guy who's up on the rise, you stopped the door on him. It doesn't necessarily leap him back into the point where someone's going to say, "Hey, now you can fight Alexander Volkanovski a second time." Because let's remember, he put up a good fight against Volkanovski, but he didn't look like he was going to win that fight really either. This was like a solid performance that beat expectations. So I think he's going to have to do some more work, even if he wins here, even convincingly. I think probably there's still more work to be done.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said, I would say. Eric, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. This is not a title shot. Leron Murphy should get the title shot at featherweight, and that's kind of it.
I feel like
Not
you
even
can't give a title shot to a prospect. No.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
the,
Oh,
the
we're
title
teasing
was
you,
future
Eric.
champion. Um,
It's all
yeah,
good. We're teasing, bud.
no, no, definitely not.
But no, I one thing that I definitely will say is like Gene Silva gets the win compared to Diego Lopez, like one's so much more justifiable. Like I don't think any of us are like really like fiending for another Diego Lopez Volkanovski fight right
I'm
away.
all set.
So
Not yet. If he gets a little more work done, I'm fine with it. Honestly, you know what would be interesting is I'm just going to throw this out here really quick. If he does win this fight, if Diego Lopez wins this fight, and then he gets a rematch against Movsar Evloev, because he's
oh,
got a chance to get that one back,
That would
right?
be a good
There'd
one.
be some interesting narrative there. It'd be an important fight.
it's a
The
shoe in
winner
for
of that
Lerone.
fight potentially gets for a title fight. I think that would be okay. And that pushes the narrative down because then you've got Lerone Murphy getting that title shot.
I like that. I like that a lot. Alrighty, we got to get Scott a job at the UFC brass. Um, all right, but guys, there's some other fights, of course, for UFC Noche. What are some of your fights to watch? Let's start with Eric. What's yours?
My guy, Alexander the Great Hernandez, stepping in on short notice. You
Oh,
might remember that I had a bet on him to beat Chase Hooper, which
yes,
he
you did.
did convincingly. Comes in as a favorite here against Diego Ferreira, a little bit older. I'm interested. I'm interested to see how this goes. But always been an Alexander Hernandez guy. First team all body. Continue.
Scott, what about you?
You're gonna release this list at the end of the year. We got to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
My fight to watch is one that honestly it stuns me that we're talking about this fight as a prelim on this particular
Yeah.
card. Tatiana Suarez against Amanda Lemos. What this could actually produce the next strawweight title challenger. Why is it here? Why
Yeah,
isn't
what
it so much higher? What are we doing?
What are we doing?
Put this up there. Like
Yeah.
I'm just exasperated.
Well,
Put it featured. She just fought for a title this year. Amanda Lemos fought for a title. Was it last year or 2 years
I
ago?
believe
We're talking about women who are
2023.
at the title level, and you're gonna bury them on this card. Makes no sense.
Well, Scott,
But I'm very excited for it.
yes, that brings us into our next thing. I mean, if they're on the prelims, then the quality of this card must be nuts. What's our event rating?
Oh, it's so nuts. The event rating is an 18 because it doesn't make any sense for this fight to be there. There's not like 7 fights that you say, oh, that ought to be on there. There's nothing. What we have is a solid co-main event, right? I think we like this co-main event. It's a good fight. It's a fun fight. There are some stakes, even if it's not as much as it was last week, right? Those were like almost the peak of fight night stakes. Co-main event, you've got Rob Font in like a nothing burger of a matchup against David Martinez, who's a late replacement for Raul Rosas. It was also a bit of a nothing burger, but it made some more sense because Rosas has like obviously he's got that promotional push. They're trying to really make him be a thing. It made some sense to thrust him up to a top 15 guy like Rob Font that quickly and see, hey, can he swim? This David Martinez, obviously it's a late notice sub, but it's just there's nothing here. It's a waste of a Rob Font fight. They're both of those guys are out of the top 75, so it's like we're not even talking about anything remotely competitive. And again, we're burying Suarez and Lemos on the prelims, so that really hurts the rating.
Yeah, that's insane.
Honestly, this card is so weird. I'm fine with it being an 18. It makes total sense that this is an 18 to me.
No, I agree. I think it's a pretty huge drop off from last year's
What do
UFC
you think,
Noche.
Eric?
Just a little bit.
Also, you know what? Let's contextualize this. Number one, they were supposed to have Noche in Mexico. I believe it was it Monterrey. I'm trying to remember exactly where.
Is
This
it not
was
even in Mexico anymore?
It's in San
No,
Antonio.
this is in San Antonio.
That's right.
It was going to be a pay-per-view, and now it's a fight night in San Antonio, and they just said, let's just abandon any not any
And they're
quality.
competing with Crawford Canelo.
Honestly, there's a lot of decent. Well, they're not competing. They are serving this as an opener. That is what this is. It
pretty
is
much.
built in as an opener for Canelo Alvarez against oh God, it's escaping me. What
Terrence
the heck is
Crawford.
his name?
Terrence Crawford.
Terrence Crawford, who Bud Crawford.
This is an MMA
awesome,
show.
dude.
It's not our job to know.
I know.
We don't care about
I
it.
know Bud Crawford. You know, like
Oh,
you
Bud.
give me his nickname. I know who Terrence Bud Crawford is.
He's your
okay?
bud.
I just couldn't think of it.
First
Yeah,
name
it's my
basis,
buddy.
we have nicknames for each other.
That's what they call him.
All right.
I'm really excited for that fight, but yeah, we are an MMA show.
We got to wrap soon, so let's get to Eric's 3 bets in 3 minutes. What do you got?
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, let's talk the betting review last week. Had Imavov as the underdog there. Shouldn't have been an underdog. Bad line. The other 2 bets, I had Tabora by decision. Didn't get that one. And then Ruffy kind of had nothing. Mauricio Huffy. So bad day at the office last week. Let's bring it back together here this week. Let's put 3 minutes on the clock. Let's hit it. 3 bets in 3 minutes. And we're going to start over on the prelims. Cedric Dumas versus Zachary Reese. I think that this line on goes to decision makes no sense to me. Now, Cedric Dumas has had a bunch of decisions of late. Zachary Reese went to decision last time. So immediately things point to a decision just based on their prior history. But Dumas, not a great grappler. Zachary Reese definitely going to be looking to grapple a little bit. Cedric Dumas, very good striker, but not super not crazy on the volume side either. So for me, I'm looking at this fight to go distance plus 450 on ESPN bet. Just seems like a crazy line. I'm all over it. Bet it myself, and that's pick number 1. Pick number 2, we're going all the way up to the co-main event, and we're going to go Rob Font versus David Martinez. Rob Font has fought the best of this division, to be clear. Rob Font, had fallen on some hard times at one point, but I mean, look, this is a guy that has wins over Cody Garbrandt. This is, a solid striker here who has really good jab. Really good jab. David Martinez, we have no idea if David Martinez is any good. He fought Simon Oliveira last time out, who's 16-6 now, and not ranked anywhere near Fight Matrix's top 100, while, Font is the number 14th ranked bantamweight in Fight Matrix's top 100. So this is a major step up for David Martinez in terms of competition. Maybe David Martinez is good enough to do it. I haven't seen anything that lends me to believe that. I think Rob Font gives him the vet lesson here. And, he's just fought too many of the great guys. I mean, Jose Aldo, Sergio Pettis. The list goes on. So, Rob Font, I expect him to definitely have some really, really impressive striking moments. I have Font by decision, plus 135 over on Fanatics. You could go with just the money line. He's minus 150 in that territory. I'm fine with that. But for me, Rob Font by decision. And then pick number 3. We're going to go right to the main event here. Diego Lopes versus Jean Silva. Jean Silva, for all that he does well, and he's won, a bunch of fights in a row here. He's won 6 in a row, 5 by a finish. He looked a little bit lost in the striking against Bryce Mitchell, and I know that, there was a lot of laughing and he was making fun of him and the leg kicks and blah, blah, blah. John Silva's definitely going to have a harder time with that against Diego Lopes. So for me, I actually think Diego Lopes has a really good shot to win here. I mean, he's minus 210 favorite, so that's not exactly reinventing the wheel. For me, I think that they're such good power punchers, and they're both not fishes on the ground either, that I think that it's all just going to cancel each other out. Eventually, I think Diego Lopes wins on damage and wins on volume, but I think that the fight is going to go to decision at plus 255. I also think Lopes wins a decision more often than Silva does, and I know that Lopes is kind of known to fall off a little bit after we saw him do that against Volkanovski, but I don't really care. I'm going to go Diego Lopes by decision and the fight to go to distance plus 255 on Bet Rivers. 3 bets in 3 minutes. Good luck.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that, Eric. And Scott, why don't you quickly run us through quick hits?
I can do this really quick for you guys. We only got a few. John Jones, speaking, as I understand it, with his longtime publicist on the red carpet at the VMAs, clarified, I am not retired, and that he is regularly training with the hope of fighting on that White House card in June. I think we've heard about that 1,000-to-1 odds. We'll see how that goes, right? Brian Ortega obviously had that awful weight debacle before his lopsided loss to Aljamain Sterling at UFC Shanghai last month. He said on Instagram that he went unconscious for about 30 minutes at one point while cutting weight. So that was fun. That's good to hear. That's all. And lastly, this is a happy trails for UFC veteran Cynthia Calvillo. She has decided to hang up the MMA gloves at age 38. She picked up her last win of her career last year in her final, what now goes down as her final fight if she comes back, as they sometimes do. But that ended at least a 5-fight skid that kind of saw her out of the UFC. So she gets to go out on a high note. Good for her.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Scott. And guys, it is time for the final round. Let's talk about some of our homework. This was great. I mean, all 3 of us are grappling fans, or at least we enjoy grappling, right? We've been doing jiu-jitsu at least at one
love
point.
Betting on grapplers.
Yes, this was great. I mean, I've seen. First off, I didn't know it was a 5th round finish. I
don't believe you actually identified the fight for as a
Mighty Mouse Johnson,
our viewers, please.
Mighty Mouse Johnson versus Ray Borg. This is the viral flying armbar clip. Probably the most,
Mighty Whiz Bar.
Yes, the Mighty Whiz Bar. Probably the most iconic finish of his career. One of the most iconic finishes ever, honestly. It's absolutely insane.
One of the best of the, yeah.
Didn't know it was a 5th round finish, so I thought it was just like a dominant performance by Mighty Mouse, and he would have finished him in like the 2nd or 3rd round or whatever. No, this was just him like literally toying around with Ray, like just constantly trying to advance position everywhere in side control, mount, what have you, going for every submission you possibly can. And then at the end of the fight, he just like, I want to go home, and then does that. What did you guys think? So good.
I mean,
it's brilliant what he could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is when Mighty Mouse was at his peak. This is when Mighty Mouse was the greatest display of mixed martial arts in the world. He was great at everything. It wasn't like he wasn't like average, slightly above average. He was amazing at everything. Wrestling, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, striking, anything.
One question that
the most technical fighter in MMA ever. The most technical fighter in MMA ever. I'm okay saying that.
One question that I have before we go is, from what I understand, there was some sort of narrative that Mighty Mouse, and I'm not saying that this is something that, fans that actually watch the sport would say, but like, was there some sort of narrative that Mighty Mouse was like a boring fighter? Like, it seems like him and the brass didn't get along terribly well because of his style. Is that wrong?
To shut down. They threatened to shut down the flyweight division because he wasn't drawing enough.
which is
But
boggles
Yeah, it
my
wasn't that he
mind.
was. It's not that he was a boring fighter in the sense of like his performances, but I think there was a perception from the UFC's brass in particular, and there is some concrete evidence of that as well, that they couldn't sell his fights, that they weren't attractive matchups for
mhm.
people to tune in and give their money to watch.
Okay.
And that was the key there. It's not that he was boring. He had an interesting personality. I think people vibed with some of the stuff that he had to offer. Not necessarily the most like trash talky guy. That's
Right.
not what his thing was, but he's got an excess of personality. If you talk to the guy, he'll talk. And I mean, you can watch him talk on Twitch and
He's
all
got a
this
whole
stuff. He's
YouTube
got so
channel,
many
yeah.
different. He's got all sorts of ways of communicating with people of various generations and gamers in particular. But yeah, it was for whatever reason he just didn't vibe with the UFC audience in a way that made them be like, I gotta watch. It took honestly, Anderson Silva was like that for a little bit too, and then he had the Vitor Belfort kick, and that did change things. It actually made him
Same thing here,
more,
honestly. Same thing here,
you
honestly.
know,
Things started to change after
yeah.
this.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he just lost the
But it
title a
was
few
his last
fights
UFC
after.
win. It was his
Yeah,
last UFC win.
which is just bad timing, I
But then he fought
suppose.
Henry Cejudo
Yeah,
right after this, right?
And
and
lost
then he
lost the
lost that
belt. Yeah,
fight.
Yeah, he lost the belt to Cejudo, but that was actually a pretty big fight. I believe it was a
it
fight night main
was.
event
Yeah,
though. I believe,
I watched
but
that
No, it
fight.
was a there were two there was a two title fight main event.
was it?
Or
I missed
that
that.
was the co-main event. That was the co-main event. It was Garbrandt and Dillashaw in the main event of that one.
Oh, all
Oh,
right,
you
It was
know
missed that.
what?
their rematch.
You know,
Both
Eric, you and I
rematches.
were thinking of TJ and Cejudo. That's what
Oh,
we were
okay, yeah,
both
yeah.
actually thinking about that when you mentioned that. Okay.
Yeah, you
Yep.
guys forgot that fight.
We got to get wrapped, so let's move through this, guys. What is our next homework assignment?
I'm gonna give you a really fun fight, and it's not gonna take you very long. This is just 5 minutes of wildness. Nick Diaz against Paul Daly from 2011. This was the main event on a two-title fight Strikeforce card. Nick was probably at the peak of his career at this point. Paul Daly had been in the UFC, but was basically banned about a year before this fight for sucker punching Josh Koscheck after the final bell of their fight.
Can't do
Because he
that.
got frustrated that he kept getting taken down and couldn't punch him, and a little bit of the trash talk, and then finally he punched him when he got stood up and nobody could punch anymore. It was like, all right, that's lame. So Dana
Yeah,
blackballed him, and kind of I get it. It would have been fun to see him back in there because the dude has monster power in his hands.
Semtex, right?
He's Paul Semtex Daly, exactly. Just watch this fight. You won't regret
it's
it.
an amazing fight. I'm very
All
excited.
right, all right, all right. And to round out our MMA history for those back home, what happened this week in MMA?
September 15, 2018, the UFC makes its first visit to Russia, packing more than 22,000 people into the building in Moscow for an event headlined by Mark Hunt and Alexei Olenek. We're not talking about premier matchup here necessarily, right? But that is the biggest crowd ever for a UFC event that didn't air on either pay-per-view or network TV. And actually, of all places, it aired on Fight Pass. This is how you watched it in
Wow.
America.
Wow.
Also of note, current champions Merab Dvalishvili and Magomed Ankalaev each got their first UFC victory on this card after going a combined 0-3 to start their UFC tenures.
That's
That's
nutty.
crazy.
A loss doesn't mean you can't be the best.
There we go.
Mind blowing. That's
Alrighty.
crazy. I didn't know that. That was my like time too in MMA. I did not watch that card.
Well, what a way to round out the show with those words, Scott. I can think of no better ending. Guys, it has been a pleasure to join you as always. I will not be here next week. I'll be out on vacation, but I will see you guys in the next couple weeks, and Scott and Eric will take very good care of you watching back
We'll
home.
hold it down.
Yes, absolutely.
always.
Alrighty, guys. I will see you next week.